It summarizes one of the sort of main principles about keeping cities safe, and she gives some quite vivid examples of how human eyes on the streets, eyes that care and attend to the street, help make it safe because they respond quickly and appropriately to disturbances. And this is something that does help many cities remain safe when there are those eyes that care around. We are now replacing those kinds of eyes with video eyes, and particularly computerized video eyes, and where these images are being analyzed.
When we started looking at the private sector, going from business to business, we quickly realized just about every place has video cameras. Many of them are pointed towards public spaces and people, and many of them do not have any kind of indication why they're there. And that's one of the most basic requirements of any of the guidelines of using video surveillance. That one for sure is definitely collecting information in what is a public space. Where is the sign? And what does it say? Is it in compliance? The real objection that Andrew and I have to this sort of regulatory regime that's happening is that we don't know what the purposes of these cameras are. According to the law, anyone that runs a camera that captures people's personal information should state a purpose, why it's there, and allow us the opportunity to contact the organization to get our information or find out what's going on with our information. Increasingly, what's behind the cameras is changing. So when you see a camera like this dome up here, you can't really tell what the guts of it are. You don't know where that signal is going, what that information is, where it's being captured, where it's being translated to. None of that is disclosed. Increasingly with algorithmic surveillance, there's software essentially that analyzes who passes by cameras, what age they are, what gender, various other types of information. This information can be broadcast around the world, stored on server farms, aggregated, but we as general citizens that are walking out in the streets do not know and have no idea of what is being done with our images.
Those are cameras that have been up for several years, but during the G20 they put up approximately 70 others, which they said they would take down. We've found 3 that they still haven't taken down yet. But very often, if there is a sign around a camera, it will refer to public safety or personal safety, crime prevention, and so on. And it's a very open question, actually, as to whether a camera does help promote safety in those kinds. There's actually a lot of evidence to suggest that its effect is minimal and only in very specific circumstances. So, for instance, there's research that shows that in parking lots, if you put up a video surveillance system, it does deter people from taking cars. However, cameras in other kinds of settings where people are less conscious of them, where there's less sort of premeditation about stealing something or doing some damage, then the effects are rather modest at best. And in some cases, research has shown that where people see there are cameras or know that they're or told that there are cameras, they then feel less likely to intervene in the case of harm upsets, because there's the presumption that if somebody is watching, somebody is paying attention, that help will be dispatched and they don't have to themselves go out of their way to intervene to help someone who's fallen down, or if somebody is being held up or something like that. If you are coming to rob the place, you would be much more attentive and you will be looking out for them. Whereas if you're just an innocent consumer who wants to have a good shopping experience and don't want to be interrupted and interfered with bright yellow signs and warnings and so on. So there's a sort of a dual message to different audiences that I think is going on here. But none of that negates the rights that we have as citizens to know what's going on and to know what's happening to our personal information.
Anecdotally, I think all of you can see that there's definitely something going on with video surveillance. There tend to be a lot of cameras, very little notice. The notice that is put out there is generally very vague and doesn't fulfill even the minimum requirements of the various guidelines or legislation that's out there. And this is a scenario that is ripe for problems in the near future. As we can do more with that information, as algorithms become more sophisticated and as we move forward, it's likely that this situation is only going to get worse unless people like you take a stance.